Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and welcome back to PCM22. This is Dragons, episode 54. For the time being, I'm still waiting on the PCM23 updated world database to show up on the workshop. It's not there yet, so for the moment, I'm going to continue recording and progressing through this final episode, possibly, of the game. Now, there's no signing special this time, but that's not to say we're going to have zero content regarding signings. Here's where we're at so far, though. Loai Hamad is currently our most expensive signing, and he's the second best option. He's at 9.5k, which is stretching it a little bit, but it's not bad. And actually, it's really not bad for one key reason, because when we look at our contracts and our team, our best riders are all signed up already for next year. But we only have 10 riders signed up for next year. We have 11 expiring contracts. Of those, only one was a total bust, and that is Yamazaki. Yamazaki, I am not re-signing. He is out. But then starting at Simonov and Zmagliev, Simonov's not great, but he's a cobbled rider, which is an area where we have a massive shortage. So I re-signed him for a minimum. Zmagliev re-signed for a minimum. Not the great prospect that he looked, but still a good prospect. And then up the line. Now, I did not spend the time, and I mentioned this in a previous episode, searching nation by nation, rider by rider to find the best prospects. In fact, I didn't search at all. So I've missed out any potential 6-star kind of kids out there. But what I have found, re-signing the current team, because the current team is good and getting better and competitive, and so I've gone up the list and re-signed all of these guys up through Hamad for a combined 37,400. I had 74,000 that I could potentially spend, which means I have 36,600 left. Right about 50% of our available money has been spent, and we have re-signed 4 5-star guys, a couple 4.5-star guys, and then very much guys on minimum salary. All of them were under 5,000 besides Hamad. That leaves me one rider left in Islamov that is not yet re-signed. I have not approached him at the moment. And then I have what I've done with the dossiers. And what I did with the dossiers is I found the best overall current ability guys that were out there and available, showing up on the top end of the list. The other than one 4.5-star guy, the 5-star or better rider from nations that we can sign somebody from. I kept it simple. I really kept it simple this year. That didn't take me long to go through and do, and it won't take me long to go through Islamov plus 6 other guys and decide who I might want to sign, and of the riders that I was retaining for my team, who I might want to not sign that dotted line like Hamad at 9.5k. Maybe I don't want to re-sign Hamad. Maybe I'd rather sign Gunai or Iqbal. Swain's not bad, but he's not good. I think we're going to pass on that one, especially when at this point I have 1 slot remaining and or growth to the team. Kanazawa is the next option, and he's a puncher, but he's only a 79. He's already maxed out in that department. He's not going to get much better otherwise. There's a reason why these are the guys that I hadn't signed in the first place. Moving up to Santi C. C is actually a better rider, a little bit more well-rounded, a little more balanced, but still puncher of 79 caliber, and that's as good as he's going to be. High rider Sukchurin is actually a decent prospect. He's more well-rounded. He's got more going on, but none of it's great. None of it is outstanding. But if he's willing to sign for the bare minimum 2.5, I might take him. 3.2, that's kind of pushing it. Will he take less than 3.2? Would he sign for a 2.7? No. Would he sign for a 3.2? Still not quite. I think I'd let him stay with the Thai team. Iqbal is a rider with that same 79 Hills rating, but definitely a more well-rounded rider than what we saw with those early options. He's a better choice. He's got 79 acceleration, 79 resistance, which means he actually could be semi-competitive as a puncher. Still could get another point or two in mountains, which certainly you need to be a puncher at World Tour level just 4 career victories. And this is a rider who actually started with us. He was in the Young Dragons. He was in our under 23s team a couple years back. It's another one, though, that you really don't want to spend much money on a guy like this. He's somebody that I would spend that 3 to 4K. I wouldn't want to sign him for 13,000. Gunai was on our team a few seasons ago. We had him for 1 year. He's a rider that now, even though he's just 23, is totally maxed out. And it's a similar situation to what we were just looking at, where he's got that 79 hills. All of these guys, that's where they're kind of coming in at. And he can kind of climb. He's got a 76 mountain. He's got some resistance. He's got some acceleration. He might be competitive on a World Tour level. Just about 3 career victories. And we had one of those. That's not much. And he was already making 17K a year ago. And that brings us to our current puncher. 80 hills, so it's already 1 point better than all of those other guys combined. 75 mountains, so he's right there with them, where it's that just about competitive. He has not won any races, though. He's been to 5 monuments. He usually ends up being one of the lead-out guys for us because we do have better all-around options than him. This is not one that you want to spend a lot of money on to retain. 78 resistance, 78 acceleration. This is just a hair better than all those other guys we were looking at. He was making minimum. You could absolutely afford to pay him a little bit more. And at 16.8, with the huge sum that we have left, you figure that, okay, this is a guy that you could put as a leader, and maybe we can re-sign for less. We're only going to get 3 chances. 15.8. And there you go. So the one guy who comes back this year on a little bit slightly higher salary, that actually still leaves 20K to commit to the next season. And we re-sign 10 of 11 guys. And if anything, that brings me back to the well-rounded Sukchurin, who's only asking 3.2. I think we bump that up to 3.7. And there's your replacement rider. So we have the same number out as we have in, with one new guy at 3.7. And that's your signings for the year. So we've reached La Vuelta. Here's the team that I had laid out for this one. Now, through quick simming everything over the entire season and not managing their calendars particularly closely, by this point, things are not looking good for a number of riders. There's a lot of fatigue out there. Locke, even though it's an objective, he comes in at 84% and unhappy. I'm guessing if we look, it's probably going to include fatigue. Oh, yeah. Jeez, 80%. That's going to be nothing but -5s. Tung, Kang, same problems. So what else can we do? Because these guys are going to be downright awful. They're going to be atrociously bad. So removing those, looking at our mountain ratings, Demo becomes an obvious replacement, as does Islamov. I'd like to replace Locke. I'd really like to place Locke as well, but you're already getting down into somebody who is -9 in comparison. But he really does have no tiredness, and I think that's going to be better for us than what Locke is going to give us. So, Ben David it is. 2 other noteworthy things before we start the race. Musa Bekov has recently leveled up, and he's becoming that rider that he'll eventually become. He's going to be that 6-star guy for us, I think. 80 mountain already with 1 victory, and this is going to be his first Grand Tour. I mean, this is the start point. He's 21 years of age. He's already 5 stars, growing rapidly, but not good enough to be the leader yet. Not at this race, but Schechter becomes our second 6-star rider, having now maxed out at 24 years of age. He's got everything. Is now an 82-81 sprinter with a 78 flat, 75 stamina, 78 resistance. Schechter, in future years, is going to be a guy who's going to win a lot. He's really going to win a lot. Already 33 victories, but only 45th this year. Setting off on a 13K time trial with a real mixed bag because I've just replaced 3 guys with 3 guys that really aren't time trialists. So this team time trial is going to be complicated. We are pushing hard as we go through here, but now we've got our leaders really kind of pulling us along. And can we use these guys to get 5 teammates over the line? And it looks like we're going to just about make that. I had these few guys backing off on how they're pushing, but even at less than what everybody else was going to give, Hamad, Musa Bekov are just about hanging on. Now Reddy is back there with them. It's almost working out for us here. They're still in the slipstream as we approach the finish line. So they're not losing much ground. We're the first team out, so it's hard to say what that time would have been like. I put the onus on our 3 main guys and had them back off and not go as hard, knowing that everybody else would struggle. Kern Pharma more than half a minute down, but is that a good time? I don't know. Bora Hansgra are already above us, so I'm guessing it's going to be kind of middle of the road. Our few leaders couldn't get supported by others. I really tried to put it for them to do all the work and everybody else kind of get one turn and then just follow. But the one turn and follow approach led to can't hang with the 3 guys even with a lighter effort. Ultimately, we were within 8 seconds of all the competitive teams, and then there was Bahrain Victorious, who were 17 seconds further up the road. They're going to have the early advantage. Definitely was not a bad time. We hoped for a little better, but it was not a good time trialing team outside of 3 guys, so you get what you get. After 6 stages, 2 of which were punchy, 1 mountain stage, we find ourselves looking like this, plus that team time trial that set us back about half a minute. Really only to 1 team, though. But Reddy is 27th at 2:20 behind Lieberman, 2:22. So not quite as bad as what we saw at the Tour de France after 4 stages, but we're only 40 seconds better off outside of the mountains and not really experiencing any race day condition excuse me, bonuses for the riders whatsoever. And once again, we do have a more punchy, free to go rider who's not taken as a threat higher up the standings. One punchy cobbled climb breaks up what would otherwise be a sprint stage, and that punchy cobbled climb could have completely changed the outlook of this race. Now, in the case of Lieberman, it hasn't. He's in the second group on the road, just 21 seconds behind. But what about Reddy? There's Terraskin. Reddy is going to lose multiple minutes. Still no sign of him. Oh, my goodness. 3 minutes down. Even though he's got a 67 cobble rating, Lieberman only has a 69 cobble rating. So either that was a really poor draw, or he has absolutely fallen apart. Lieberman is now 15th overall, and Reddy is well behind. So we're already going to change tactically to ride for Lieberman, who's a better time trialist, I believe, anyway. 76 on his time trial. And use the breakaway eventually for Reddy to work his way back up the order. Vlasov, Vengegaard, and Glog are the leaders right now, and probably the heavy favorites as you look at the field. There's no one else up there in the standings anyway. Looks a contender of anywhere, of any sort in the within 4 minutes group. So it's really just down to those guys and maybe Almeida. Just about halfway through the race after stage 9 now, and disaster has struck. I lost 2 riders on the same stage, presumably in the same crash, with a very similar injury to one another, and the bad news, which could have been worse, but only slightly because Lieberman's still here. It was Reddy and Islamov. Reddy breaking his arm, Islamov breaking his wrist, both out of the race. So we've lost 2 of our 3 best riders, and that's going to leave us really shorthanded for the remainder of this one. And Lieberman has been slipping down the standings through a couple of punchy stages. Mountain stage, stage 14, spread out all over the place with favorites at the top of the standings, and our guys nowhere to be seen. 4 minutes. Musa Bekov at 4.5, Terraskin, Lieberman 544 down, and that is going to knock us completely out of contention 2/3 of the way through La Vuelta. Gloag leads. Neidhart is second. Big lead over everybody else. You're already looking at 6 minutes down here. Hamad is actually still 15th, but 8.5 down. Lieberman's 854 down now in 17th. That was ugly. Stage 7 of the Benelux Tour, the Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg Tour. Schechter was leading going into the final stage, but the final stage was a cobbled one with cobbled climbs, and that's not his area, nor any of my guys' areas, so William Bloom-Levy has come out and won it. Schechter, though, finished 16th on the stage, 6.5 minutes behind. That's a huge gap. Actually stays in the top 10. He's not going to get the overall. He's not going to get a great score there for any reason, but he does win a couple stages along the way and had a podium on a third stage, so had a good race overall, just couldn't come away with the victory. Points classification was his, so at least we got that. In individual time trial on stage 16, the picture's still pretty dang ugly, and in a way worse, in a way better. Neidhart now leads from Gloag with a much better time trial, but it's Ineos riders 1 and 2 either way. And then a huge gap, 4 minutes to Caro, 5 to the next trio of riders. And we're at 10 minutes down for still Hamad ahead of Lieberman. Lieberman carrying a little fatigue, and that does explain part of it, especially on the quick sim side of it. The rest of the team's not really there to properly support. If they have bad race day condition, they're just going to perform poorly, period. And Hamad, now on a fitness peak, is looking at +5s daily. That's only just happened in the last couple of stages, but he's definitely been the better of the team. Musa Bekov is moving up the order, though, but he's well out of it. So GC, very much not happening. Stage wins, so far, very much not happening. We'll see if we can get something in the final stages, though. And so we've reached the end of La Vuelta, our final Grand Tour of this series. Ineos take a 1-2 with Neidhart ahead of Gloag by over 5 minutes. Hamad moved all the way up to 9th place, finishing 12 minutes down, and Lieberman recovered a little bit to 14th. Considering we lost 2 of our 3 best riders, and the third one was carrying fatigue, and 4 out of the 6 riders that finished the race were carrying a lot of fatigue by the end of the race, considering we quick-simmed all but a team time trial, and had a really weak group of time trialists, but had a good race nonetheless, really only losing time to one team, and that team was that Bahrain Victorious, right? Caro, the leader of that team, the only one to even finish above my guys, and deserves, his position. He's many minutes ahead, and we lost like 17 seconds. So we did what we could. The quick sim did what it should. If you remember, we were a team that this is our first year ever making World Tour, and we're at the very back end of it. So to come away with a 4th place at one Grand Tour, to come away with a top 10 at a Grand Tour where we were massively underprepared and overly fatigued, and to come away with 2 stage wins in the other Grand Tour, I think is a good sign. For any real world scenario where you have a brand new team to the World Tour peloton, and to have those results in your 3 Grand Tours, everyone would say that that is a success, especially that top 5 at the Tour de France. All in all, not bad. La Vuelta, yeah, for us it couldn't have gone much worse than it did, but at the same time, we still came away with the top 10. You'll take that. You really would take that. Evian's a huge team. Their highest finisher was 10th. Global 6, that's a big team. Their highest finisher was 12th. Alpecin Phoenix, highest finisher, Robert Stannard, 13th. Bora Hansgrohe, they were 2nd. They have Vlasov. He finished 15th. Vingegaard finished 16th. In the real world, that's one of the top 3 climbers on the planet. He finished 16th, 16 minutes down. This was a crazy end of season race where there was a lot of fatigue in the legs of a lot of riders. And our 5th best got a position in the top 10 because he was the only one who was fit throughout that race. You put that into perspective, I think it's a good result. Season not quite done yet. Let's speed things up towards the end. We've reached the end of the season. We're going to do a few things, but quickly because this is already a long episode. So first off, we are 7th in the index. None of our riders have gotten into the top 18 with Bernal and Pogačar as the top 2 on the year. And in the Super Prestige, it's the same story, but it's Pogačar who is miles ahead of anybody else in terms of an individual score. And we're not up there on victories either. Not one rider getting over 7. First year in World Tour as a team, not a great one. But I controlled very few of the races as we went through. We used the quick sim throughout. The fitness management by the AI was atrocious. They did really poor in so many different ways, and that's what happens when we try to rush through a season. 12th could have been worse. 11th in the Super Prestige. I don't remember exactly where we were placed, but I think we were somewhere around 6th or 7th a year ago. 3,896 is not a good haul. Put things in perspective, last season we had 4,750 points. We are nearly 1,000 points below that, and that was as a Continental Pro team. But that's also part of the story here. We went from being a very good Continental Pro team, who we focused on some World Tour races, and as I rode those, we scored some points. But on the Quick Sim side of things, all those Continental Pro races, we had good riders at them, and they performed, and they came away with a lot of results. Here, we're in the World Tour. What were the races that I controlled? The classics? That's not our strength. So we didn't do very well there. Our other B category, our other strength, is as GC, but we're not quite there. And so we got a 4th, and we got a 9th in GC. That is not going to lead to a very high score. All in all, it wasn't a terrible season considering how we managed things, considering all the injuries we had, the growth and the development of the squad. You have the entire squad coming back minus one rider, and the replacement rider for that rider is better than that rider was, and that was without the detailed time and effort and development. You know, it's okay. I'll take it. We still managed to get 16 wins on the year. Our Young Dragons actually managed to get 12 themselves. It's an okay season for being sped up, but that's all it was. But I am going to speed things up one more time to January 1st so we can get a final tally on what happened with the development of the database, which of course was the primary objective of the series. 1st of January, Demo is the latest to become a 5.5-star rider, just about maxed out now, and is our leading puncher at an 81, or at least as a pure puncher. I didn't go through the draft to save time, but our under-23s development team is really showing the progress that we're making, the depth of what we have here. Every single one of these riders is 4 stars or better. One of them is a 5-star talent, who's a 5-star current, 21 overall, Samir Haj, and he's a puncher. I mean, nothing to write home about, nothing fantastic, but it's a really good start. It's a really good sign of the progress following 8 seasons of trying to develop things. We're finding riders, and they're from all over the place. You got guys out of Brunei, Chinese rider finally showing some talent. Syrian, India. It's definitely a different prospect than what we were facing earlier on. Speaking of a different prospect, let's see if there's any change in the training structure. I doubt it this season. We really didn't place very well last year. And yet that is exactly what we have done. It was Hamad. It was that 9th place finish at La Vuelta that had to be the explanation for this one. Evolution of training structure. Saudi Arabia gets a +1. Now here's context of why that happened. And all it took was a top 10 at La Vuelta. He had scored some other points on the season, but that was definitely the bulk of the points that he picked up. Why did it matter? because they were a 1-2. They're a 2-2 now. It's not severe, it's not a lot, but when it's that low, top 10 in a Grand Tour is going to be enough. So we do pick up a point after all, and that gives us a grand total of 15 in 8 seasons. So just about 2 points per year is what we managed to add, and of course it was a slow start. There was a couple points early on that came out of Kazakhstan, but it wasn't our doing. A lot of these points, half of them ended up being our doing, but the rest happened relatively organically. But we had a part to do in some of that, as the database produced riders that we contributed to being there because we picked up a point and then better riders would come along. And we did see progress. The real progress, well, here, first off, all of the nations that gained points: Israel, Japan, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Mongolia, Philippines, Saudi Arabia, Taiwan with 2, and Turkey. The 2 primaries, though, that gained more than 2 points, or more than 1 outside of that one exception: Israel and Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan, we contributed 1 of those, but 3 of those 4 points came from Lutsenko. Israel, we produced every single one of those points, all 3 of them. So that one feels good. That's where we had the most success, and that was down to Scheckter and Lieberman. Scheckter as a great sprinter, and Lieberman developing as an overall, their combination. We picked up 2 points in training structure for them, and despite all those wins, all those successes, we only picked up a single point in popularity, bringing it up to from a 2-4 to a 4-5. And that 5 for popularity, you'd figure out of so many wins, we could have done more. But most of the wins were Scheckter. They were sprint stages. They were just stage victories. Scheckter won some overalls, but they were at minor races. If Lieberman had finished first in the Tour instead of 4th, that would have been hands down a point. He didn't win any stages there either. Had he won a stage, maybe that would have been something. But Scheckter won 2 stages at the Giro and gained no bonuses whatsoever. So I think it would have come down more so to a GC victory at any one of the Grand Tours, really. But all in all, 15 points gained shows that it can work, it can succeed. Did we become the best in the world in 8 seasons? No. Asia did not flip the power structure and become the go-to for talent. They sure did get better in just 8 seasons. And we're going to have a lot more than 8 seasons in the Lions series. A lot more. It's going to be the one that goes from beginning to end 3 times a week, all year long. And it's going to be a lot of episodes. So with that, I'm optimistic that we're going to get a whole lot further. But that is going to do it for this episode and for this series. I'd really like to thank you for being with me on this journey. 54 episodes in a shortened cycle. Roughly half of the game cycle. Actually, I don't even think it was half. This has been a popular series, especially one that started at a midpoint in the cycle. And I've really enjoyed making this one. I'll admit that at times Pro Cycling Manager has started to rub me the wrong way, and I've had issues. This series gave freshness, gave a renewed sense for me that I can't wait to get going on the next one, and it's going to be the primary focus of the next one. So I'm really hoping for a good positive year, and be sure to check that one out and follow me with that journey, because it's going to be a similar journey, this one taking place in Africa. But I appreciate you being here. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. And bye for now.